Welcome back to the Funny Thing Is podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Birch, where every episode I bring you someone who shares a life-changing event, the medicine they took to get better, and the funniest lesson they learned along the way. Today is no exception. Today I have a great guest for you. She is a TV writer. She has a Substack called... What's it called?
It Can Be Both.
It Can Be Both. And she's a good friend of mine named Jeanie Bergen. Welcome to the show.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So usually we do like an intro.
Yeah.
So we met 10 years ago?
Something like that.
I feel like we should have met 15 years ago because our friends, we have the same friend circle.
Yes.
I was in the Groundlings. Your roommate was Katie Rose, who was huge in the Groundlings.
Yes.
And for years, I'd heard about you.
Same.
And they're like, you guys look alike. You're both funny. You both like to write.
Yeah.
And it's like, why haven't you guys met? So they literally basically set us up on a let's hang date.
Yes.
And then we went to the rooftop of the Huntley, right?
Yeah. And your sister was there with a friend, I think. And I just like immediately fell into.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We weren't even alone. It was just like I was with your family.
I literally only remember you being there.
Well, because I think we just immediately like took to each other. They were like on their own.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. That's hilarious. That's right.
Yeah.
Because I remember that. I was like, this is where I go on dates with Jeanie. This is where it is.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what is a life-changing event you want to share?
Yes. So my biggest life-changing event is becoming my sister's guardian.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my sister is disabled.
Right.
She has an intellectual disability called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. I still don't even know if I pronounce it correctly.
Okay.
LGS, essentially. And I first became her guardian when I was 20 years old.
Okay. So how did that's very young.
Yeah.
Is she older, younger?
She's a year older. her name is Edna. So,
yeah.
so she
I
sounds
love
like
Edna.
Edna.
Everybody knows Edna.
Everyone does know Edna. Yeah, she was named after my grandma. She's a year older. Everyone always thinks that I'm her mom because it's just or I'm older. And now I'm starting to get the doctors like think I'm her actual mom because I have wrinkles. And I'm like, this is
really?
so offensive.
I did think you were the older sister
Yeah.
only because I think your brain kind of stops and goes, okay, it's one thing to already be a guardian. I knew you were a guardian at a young age.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be a guardian of an older sibling.
Right.
Like I was like, your brain can only, my brain can only take it.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what your brain was doing.
Yeah.
So at 20, what happened that you got to be her guardian?
So our grandmother passed away. Grandmas die. And so she died. And then my mom, so I should back up and say our mom died of breast cancer. Our dad left the situation. Was never a part of our lives. And then we were raised by our grandmother and our aunt who were like co-guardians, caregivers of us.
And this was in Wisconsin.
And then we moved to Arizona in high school. So we were in Arizona. I was in college. I was a sophomore in college. And I got the call that my grandmother had passed. And she was with my aunt at the time, and my sister was, and had been, and things weren't, my aunt was not really equipped to take care of her.
Right. Okay.
And so it wasn't like, it was definitely a choice that I made. I could have, but it's like I could say I could have left her with my aunt, but I physically could not stomach the idea of Edna not being properly taken care of.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's not to say, my aunt and I have since healed our relationship, which I never thought would happen. So I don't want to speak poorly of her, but she wasn't capable at that moment of taking care of Edna.
And Edna, not only intellectually, like is she confined to a wheelchair?
She uses a wheelchair. She is ambulatory, but sometimes she doesn't want to walk. In recent years, she's just not wanted to walk at all. Sometimes she will, sometimes she won't.
Okay.
It's what Edna wants.
Got it. Yeah. And then verbal, nonverbal?
Nonverbal essentially, has been verbal. Okay. That has also kind of faded away, and that's a recent thing.
Yeah. I just wanted to like paint the pit for people that knew what you were being the caretaker for.
So Edna essentially, she loves Winnie the Pooh. She used to love Barney. I used to hate Barney when we were kids. Like I tried many times to I remember one time like riding in a dune buggy in Michigan and looking at Barney and like wanting to throw him off the edge because I was like so sick of people staring at us because they would see like 12-year-old, 13-year-old us. And Edna had a Barney doll. And so people were staring at us and I hated it. And so I just wanted Barney to get the fuck out of here.
Well, there's so many layers to that of what that really meant. Okay.
I know. So, and she loves Charlotte's Web. She loves pizza, like those are the things she loves. That's who Edna is. But yeah, she can't say my stomach hurts. I have a headache. I had a seizure last night. Like we know that she has seizures. But she can't really say how that feels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then at 20, you get, what was it like growing up with her when your mom was still alive?
I don't remember much because our mom died when we were 4, but I had
I didn't know you were that young. Oh
I
my
was
goodness. Okay.
I was 4. And Edna was 5. And the memories I have with my mom, like I have a tape recording of us doing our ABCs with our mom and Edna speaking completely.
Oh my gosh.
Fine. And so that's like those are the memories I have. And like the memory I have of my mom is like riding in her hospital bed, you know, like the up and down.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this is fun. But like, I was a kid. I didn't know what was going on.
So crazy. Did your grandmother or aunt have breast cancer?
No.
Okay. So
not to my knowledge. My grandmother, it was dementia.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Just hit it on all sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you became a guardian. So, and Edna was already in Arizona, or she had to be moved
already
to
in Arizona.
Okay.
So I've become Edna's primary caregiver a couple of times. Currently, she lives in a group home, which was a decision I made about 10 years ago. But when I first became her guardian at age 20, she came to live with me in my dorm at the University of Arizona.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, your reaction is my roommate's reaction.
Okay. I'm just so curious how that went down.
Yeah, it was rough, but also my roommate was dating like a hot baseball player down the hall. So she essentially just like moved into his dorm.
Right.
Well, I figured it out with Edna. But yeah, that was interesting because it's like walking her down the hall to take a shower, use the bathroom, was just, you know, it wasn't really manageable for a long period of time.
Yeah, no.
But it was like she couldn't stay with my aunt, so I had to remove her, bring her with me. And then my aunt got better for a period of time. So she went back to live with my aunt, and then that was no longer possible. So she came to live with me maybe when I finished school. So like 22.
Okay.
And then she had a caregiver during the day. So I would go to work and then have Edna during the week and the weekends. Sometimes we would have off. And then when I moved to California, like fast forward, moved to California when I was 27, 28.
Yep.
And then about 6 months later, I got an anonymous phone call from someone who knew Edna's caregiver.
No.
And yeah. And they said, Gabby's dying and you have to come get your sister. Gabby doesn't want to tell you. So I had no idea that Gabby was even sick, and she had breast cancer too.
What in the...
Yeah. And I was at that point in my second year of grad school. And
I feel like you're making this up. Like, that's how crazy this is.
I wish. Yeah. Gabby was really amazing. Had 2 daughters of her own. And, you know, I don't like have any hard feelings for her not telling me. I mean, she was sick.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. And so then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Arizona to get Edna. And so then I drove to Arizona, drove Edna back. I don't even think I had a car. Like a friend flew me to Arizona. I had no money. And then I got a rental car. And I remember the Hertz rental car woman gave me a discount because I was just like shoving all of Edna's like Barney and Piglets and Winnie the Poohs like in this little rental car that I couldn't even afford. Also, I'm sorry. This isn't like the most hilarious story.
No, it's not supposed to be. The first part's not supposed to be.
Okay.
And none of it has to be.
Yeah. And then brought Edna to California. And part of the reason I hadn't brought her I came here was because you have to live in the state for 90 days before you can officially receive any sort of help from get established in what's called the regional center, where they provide services such as like connecting you with like caregivers, IEPs, all of that stuff. And
they're great. Do you like them?
I didn't. No.
Yeah. I hear they're great. They keep, because Everly has an IEP. So it was like, everybody keeps recommending them. And I had the hardest time with them and I got frustrated and I just went on outside resources.
Yeah. That's also what I did. And then I started, because we had, you know, like when we had to go to the intake center, and Edna had to be evaluated for whether or not she was disabled. And, you know, she's sitting there in a wheelchair reading. I remember she was holding the book upside down. I was just like, okay, like she's not faking.
You're like, she's 26 years old. Yeah, she's
like, can you help me?
Right.
And I remember they were having like this happened during the holidays, which is such a weird time for all of this to be happening, because it's such a reminder of like family, and, you know, and I remember they like handed me this like loaf of bread, and they were like, here's this bread.
Happy holidays. Like, what the fuck?
I was just like, okay. And we were taking the bus around town, and which is, I mean, fine, but it's when you're a wheelchair user, like it's harder to take, it's harder to get everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. So she came to live with me, and then I started writing about taking care of her because it was just the two of us in my, 1-bedroom apartment. And she wouldn't walk up and down the stairs. So I was carrying her up and down the stairs.
Oh, goodness.
Which, I was physically, quote unquote, able to do that at that time. But like, I have a permanent back injury from doing that. Like, I was just doing what I had to do. But I remember like one of the people came from the regional center, and I was like, I need help because I can't get her up and down the stairs. And he was like, well, you could use the wheelchair. And I was like, what the fuck? Are you suggesting that I place my sister in the wheelchair
at the top of the steps? What the fuck, dude?
But like with a straight face, just like, what are you talking about?
Like, I have the best idea. Yeah. You're like, what the fuck, dude?
I'm like, you could see both of us. We're like the same size. I'm like, this isn't, like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So I started writing about it. I started, just posting on Facebook when that was a thing. Just like the stuff that I was going through taking care of Edna, because I felt so alone in it. And by talking about it, it just kind of like people were also getting pissed, and I felt like, okay, I was like building a community around it, around the situation.
You also, it kind of helps you that you're not crazy making, that it's like not in just your head. It's like, no, this is like, even as you're telling me this, it's already 10 times what I thought it was. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and also the same thing, with my grandmother, it's like, there was never any plan in place. There was never a discussion. It, very Catholic, like, don't express feelings. There was even though I took care of my sister when we were younger and I like gave her baths and like brushed her teeth, it never occurred to me that I might one day be taking care of her
for the rest of her life.
Yeah. And when my sister was younger, it was like, okay, you could pick her up or, and now it's like, okay, she's my size and you can't just whisk her, like pick her up when she falls on the floor or she sits on the floor and refuses to stand. You can't just do that anymore. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of learning for sure.
Okay. So now you're like 27, 28 in LA with her.
Yes.
Then what happens?
Then
how long is that period?
She lived with me for 9 months while I finished school. So she was in my final semester. It was like November of 2013 to August of 2014. Okay. So she has now lived next month. It will be 10 years since she's lived in her group home.
Okay. And you love it.
I do. Yeah. I do. The people are really nice.
Do you want to give them a shout out?
Maybe just because of privacy reasons.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just because I know sometimes we like donate for like umbrellas and stuff for their stuff. So if there's something like that, follow Jeanie on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, just at Jeanie Bergen.
Yeah, and if like every now and then there's options to donate to the facility.
We do. Yeah. We've done, they needed a patio redo. So we did Edna's umbrellas.
Which was so cute. That was really cool.
And during the pandemic too. So it was like they needed to be able to go sit outside and be in the shade and, even for the caregivers to have somewhere nice to sit. Yeah. For their breaks.
And the umbrellas were cute.
They were really cute. Yeah.
Okay. Keep going. Sorry.
No. And then I created this blog called My Parents Are Dead and My Sister is Disabled.
Great.
Real hilarious. And it got a lot of traction because I was talking about, this is what we're going through. The state's not helping us. I'm being told to wheel my sister up the stairs in her wheelchair. I cannot do it. And someone, basically the organization that runs her group home, read the story on Twitter and reached out to me directly and said, we'd love to help you, like get in touch. And I told them the story. And there, of course, was a group home opening about 30 minutes away from me, had been open for the entire time I'd been looking. But because it wasn't in the same, it works kind of like school districts. Right. Because it wasn't in the same neighborhood that I was in, like I wasn't being told about it. Mm-hmm. Even though there were moments where I was like, I physically can't do this anymore. Like I help. They weren't helping. And so it was by sharing the story that the organization reached out to me. And I had also visited several group homes and I just wasn't finding anything. Like, when you walk into a space, if it feels warm and if it feels safe and you get good vibes or not. And when I went to where Edna lives now, I was like,
you could relax. Okay. You could breathe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So she's been there for 10 years and, it has been safe and cared for and loved and it's opened up you know, I think my grandma had a lot of fears about letting anyone help her. And yeah, there's some bad people out there that want to, you know, take advantage of people who are vulnerable and who can't advocate for themselves or who are
Of course,
nonverbal.
of course.
But there's also a lot of really good people and who it's like truly their life's calling. They're not making a lot of money, you know?
Yeah, I know they do not get paid enough.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. Yeah.
Ay,
So that's kind of like the
ay.
shortened version of a 20-year, like
That's
me legally
crazy.
becoming
And
their
then how
guardian.
in that, I'm just curious how
Yeah.
you found your way to have a life at all, to have a
Yeah.
like a social life, or even like how do you go to work? How do you
Yeah.
provide for just yourself? Like that's
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's the big question, right? I think of like life and like being a mom or being a caregiver.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you take care of someone while you're trying to take care of yourself?
Yeah.
And I think like for me, had I not been initially, like had I not been in school when I was 20 years old and had I not been like, had really strong ambitions to at that time be an actor. And then I was like, okay, I can't do acting. I'm going to be a journalist. Like, had I not
Right.
like been tethered to school and had these dreams beyond that, I don't know what I would have done, because having to go to work did kind of save me, especially being on camera.
Yeah.
Like when I was working in news, like when you're on camera, you're not bringing in your shit. Like you're just like, well, welcome to the news. Or
Read the
whatever.
script. Read the script. Read
Yeah.
the script.
Read
Yeah.
the telephone. Yeah, exactly. And so that saved me, I think. But I didn't have a life when I was really taking care of Edna. And I also wasn't sharing when I was 20 years old what I was going through. Like in my 20s, I just didn't. I was very like, I can do this on my own. And there was a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment that my family wasn't, you know, perfect, that I didn't have a mom and a dad, that, you know, my sister had disabilities, which I know, you know, it's like, that's Edna. Anyway.
Right.
Question.
Have you ever heard from your dad again?
No, he died, according to Google.
Google.
According to Google, he died in 2016. But it's interesting because he was alive when I was on the news in Tucson.
Stop.
And so
was
I'm
he in
like,
Arizona or was he in
He
Wisconsin?
was, yeah. When I saw that he died, it said that he was in Tucson specifically. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe he's like, I know that girl. I
He's
don't
like,
know.
oh, that's my kid.
Yeah, I have no idea. I
Weird.
have no idea.
Yeah.
So no.
So what is, through all of that, what's the medicine that you would say, how would you say you're doing today comparatively?
I'm definitely more mature, and I know that it's okay to ask for help. And I'm really now at the point, because things have not been great for me recently, not working and you know, not having money and really struggling with money because the industry is like basically collapsed after the strike, and pre-strike it was bad too. So now I feel like I have been able to, like, for example, I really wanted to go see Edna a couple of weeks ago, and I did not have money to put gas in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, even if I had the money to put gas in my car, it's actually not safe for me to go and get Edna and drive her around right now. Not when I'm like at this level of having this much
Stress,
anxiety and so much stress. And so I feel like finding her a safe place where I know she's okay, and then being able to be like, okay, like things are really hard for me right now, and I just have to focus on getting better myself, and like applying for several jobs a day and writing my script and pitching my shows. And I just have to do that, because if I'm not in a good place, I'm not going to be good to Edna.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And there were several times when I would drive around like a maniac with Edna in the passenger seat, you know, when I was in my 20s and when she was living with me. And I think back and I'm just like, my mom must be watching over us. Someone must be watching over us and keeping us safe, because there is no reason why we should be here. Because it was just like true survival mode. Right. You know? And
that's a long time to be in survival mode too.
Yeah.
I mean, what that does to your like nervous system and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to my husband, also fun new word. And I told him before he came into the picture, like I would be so depleted because it was just Everly and I.
Yeah.
And I'd have a babysitter that I'd have to pay a third of my money to just pick her up from school and sit with her for an hour, because my job didn't end by the time her daycare let out.
Right.
So just for like that hour or two, might be 2 hours. And then it would run into like 7:30, which was her bedtime. And if I would get off work at like 7:50, if I'd get home at 7:15, I would wait in the car park and just like wait for 15 minutes, because I was like, I can't go in there and put her to bed because what a shitty mom to have put you to bed right now. It was so sad. And then I think about like, now I rush home because there's been enough space and time and help and support. And I've had to ask for, I still have trouble asking for help.
Yeah. Yes.
But that is because when you're in survival mode, you're like, well, I'm here for a reason. Like somebody could help me. They're just not. And so then you just feel like you can't ask for that help. It's crazy.
Right. But I think that has been my medicine is asking for help, which truly is so, initially was so painful and so hard. But it's like, I would be, if someone said I need help, I would want to help them if I had like gas in the tank or whatever.
Oh, we're about to have this discussion about how you helped me. Can we talk about that story real quick? Okay, so this is my favorite Jeanie story. So, and I'd say we were friends. We were more probably like between acquaintances and friends at that point because I think we'd only hung out a couple times maybe.
Yeah.
And I just had Everly, single mom, no job. I think I had Everly was that the one where she was only 2 months old?
She was little. She was a baby.
She was. So we took our first flight. She was 2 months old. And I also had Tootsie, who was my chocolate cocker spaniel and was at the time 13 years old and not doing great. And we all went to go to the airport and I was like, hey, is there any way anybody, and I think I posted on Facebook or something, anybody could take us?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't afford the Uber. And I go, slight caveat, we'd have to leave at 4 a.m. And Jeannie's like, I'll be there. No problem. Jeannie not only gets there, shows up early with Starbucks coffee, croissant, a treat for Tootsie, probably a puppuccino, and helps me load everything. Because if you know, when you're that stage of mom, you have 19 different things. I'm sure a second kid, it's different, but you have 19 different pieces of luggage. She helps me load everything in, including Tootsie. We drive to LAX, not the best airport. Yeah. We drive there. You park, you walk with me, and then slowly unload everything. I think you even walked Tootsie so she could go pee before we got into the plane. Yeah. And that was how you showed up for me. And I was like, holy shit. And I just want you to, because I'm going to cry.
I'm crying.
I know. But I was like, I needed it so bad.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on my show. It's been so much fun.
No, but you know, I didn't know that you couldn't afford it. I just thought you needed a ride to the airport.
I had no money.
Yeah.
I had nothing. And
I was happy to help. Also, going to LAX at 4 a.m. is a fucking breeze. Like if it would have been
compared to like 4 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd been awful. Yeah. You'd be like, you're on your own. No. And that I just remember like, because you're frazzled, right? And then right when I got on the plane and I took a picture and Everly's and her baby Bjorn sleeping and Tootsie's at my feet. And I take a picture and I sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, we made it. And the only reason we made it was because of you. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So
thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah. It's because I asked. Yeah. So this is the lesson.
Yeah.
You can ask. Right. And then there are great people out there that show up.
Right. And people show up when they can and like when they're able to, you know.
But I mean, I'm like, wait, that means she went to Starbucks first. Like, that's why I was like, it was so over and beyond what anybody would do.
Well, I got one too. I got a Starbucks.
I know. You know? I know, but still, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was probably the kindest gesture anybody's done my entire life.
Well, that's very kind. Yeah. Thank you. I was happy to.
Well, thank you. So, okay. So your medicine.
Definitely ask for help.
Asking for help.
Yeah. But I'm still on that journey of it. Like I recently wrote about this because I'm in a relationship. I have a great, lovely boyfriend for truly
who
the
I've
first
not met
time.
yet. I can't wait. I can't wait.
So he's too nice.
I'm so excited.
Thank
Double
you.
date.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. My therapist keeps saying, you keep saying he's so nice. Why? Like, it's like, you almost can't believe it. And I'm like, I can't. Like, he's just a really nice guy. But I've never been in a relationship with someone when I've been struggling this much financially. And like at the point where I'm like, am I going to have to move? Am I going to be able to keep my car? Like things are bad and they will get better. They are getting better, but I've never been in a relationship. And I just had to tell him like, I don't have any money. Like I can't, this is what's going on right now. And he's like, okay, let's talk about it. And
let's talk about it. That's a different man.
A different man.
Yeah.
Instead of shutting down. And I'm like, oh, but this is what I've said I've always wanted as someone, because I think it's so romantic. Like I have a friend whose parents, when they first met, and of course they have they're so wealthy now, but like their story is that they couldn't afford to get Dreyer's ice cream when they first started dating.
Oh my god.
And so they like went and getting a Dreyer's ice cream like bucket of it and eating it together was like one of their, ways that they first started dating and bonding. And I always think of that. And I think it's so romantic when people can survive being poor together because it truly strips you of everything.
Yeah.
And you're in survival mode. And it's just that it's been very, I feel like I've been like stripped naked and been like, okay, this is who I am. There's no pretending. And I have to like ask you for help at times. And like he sent me gas money for my car and I paid him back right away. And not that even that he asked, but that I felt like, okay, I have to.
Dude, this is Matt and I's relationship.
Really?
Like I had 2 months rent probably left in my bank account, went back to bartending, and it was still like, I mean, our rent was almost like $2,800 because we had a 2-bedroom. And I was like, okay, am I about to stay in Los Angeles and move into a studio apartment with a 2-year-old?
Yeah.
Is that where my life's at? Knowing I could buy a house in Kansas City and get a decent job. And even out here, I was already trying to get the 9-to-5. So I was like, okay, screw acting. That's way off the table. Let's go back to doing clerical work. I don't care.
Exactly.
And I had 2 months of money left. And Matt from like month 3 was like, so I guess I have to move out there, don't I? And because Everly's dad's here. And so we wanted, I wanted to like, we as in Craig and I, her dad, that was kind of the ideal for a long time. And with that, I was just like, yeah, I think you'd have to move out here. And then when I said I had 2 months money left, he's like, okay. So he put in his notice and he was like, okay, I'm moving. He can work. Thank goodness he can work remotely, but he was out here within 60 days.
Wow.
And every time I was having a bad day, he'd Grubhub me food. And I was just like, it just showed up, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's not, and not to slight it, he's not making like millions. I'm not like this. He's not my sugar daddy. So he's just a good guy making normal money. That's like, oh, you're drowning. And he's like, how are you doing this?
Right.
And so it's just like, when you find a guy like that, and it's just this, not even a guy, just the support system is like crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and just like the food, the sending food, that's so, it's like basic necessities that sometimes, you're not thinking about because you're busy taking care of someone or you literally can't afford it.
And here's the other thing for guys that are dating single moms, get them Grubhub gift cards because here's the deal. If you're a single mom, you can't leave the house after like 7:30 or 8 because the kid's in bed. So it's not like you can just go get something.
Right. Exactly.
That was like the biggest thing because he would just, and I was like, well, I'm eating it. So I'd get these like acai bowls. He's like, you want healthy? You want junk food? What do you want? And I was like, oh, I'd probably like one of these things. And then like there'd be a knock at my door 45 minutes later. And I'm like, what a gem.
Such a gem.
What a gem. But that's also how you, I know, so am I. I'm so glad I married him. But that's also a lesson in, interestingly enough, how you would show up for people. If you knew the situation, how you'd show up.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think I'd show up that way. I couldn't have shown up that way for anybody I couldn't have shown up for anybody in the last 4 years. And I've had some friends that have like, I really needed you. And I will have made an effort, but I'm like, I have nothing to give.
Yeah.
So I want to be there for you. But that was a really hard part. There were like some big things that I missed that I was like, oh, I wish I could have been there for that.
Right.
But I was scrounging,
Right. And sometimes people, you aren't available. And I think that's what's so interesting about friendship too, is that it's not always going to be the same. Like every relationship, sometimes, you're really close with someone, you see them all the time. And other times you don't talk for a year because you both have shit going on or one person is in, a state. So,
okay. So your medicine is asking for help. Was there anything else?
Lexapro.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got Lexapro on here before.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with it because I've gained a lot of weight being on Lexapro and I went off of it. And of course I went off of it right when my dog was in the process of dying. And it was what the hell? So, I mean, it took me a long time to be willing to try a medicine because I thought I could handle it. And I also didn't realize there was so much piling on. It's like that frog in like a boiling.
On the boiling water. Yeah.
There was so much that I kind of didn't realize, and I didn't want to acknowledge how much pressure I was under. But then it came to a point where I was like, I think I could physically drop dead from the stress that is happening. And it took my therapist like several years to convince me to try it. She was like, it will just take the edge off.
Right.
And I think what she said too was, you know, I was only on it when my sister was in the process of passing away, and I needed a little help too. And I was like, okay. And then I talked to other people who were on it, and they were like, it doesn't change. You're not going to like suddenly, I thought I would become more I shouldn't say crazy, but I thought I'd become worse somehow.
Right. I always thought it would make me like catatonic. And I did when in my 20s, I had a stint where I did like Zoloft, and I did gain that 20 pounds in, I want to say like 2 weeks. It was fast.
Yeah.
But he goes, I was literally waking up, going to work, like nighttime bartending, working till 3 a.m., coming home, sleeping until it was time for me to go to work again.
Right.
And sometimes I'd shower, and sometimes and I was like at my hottest at like 22, you know what I mean? Like whatever. Yeah. And he's like, well, what's going on? And I was like, literally nothing. My life is fine. I just have no desire to do anything. He's like, explain the chemicals in your brain. And he goes, it's just going to turn those neurons back on. It's the best way. He goes, just try it.
Yeah.
And then I tried it, and I was like, oh. And then I like pretty quickly, like they were like, I think they said it could take like a month or something, and it took like 3 days, and I was already starting to feel better.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, that means that whatever was going on, there was a lot of deprivation because of just 3 days. It started firing that quickly.
Yeah.
I wasn't on it very long at all, like maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
But it kickstarted something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like what we need.
Exactly. Yeah. A jump start. Yeah.
Yeah, Lexapro. Should sponsor us at this point.
That's
It's a good
true.
one. It's a good one. What would you say is the funniest lesson you've learned along the way?
This is gonna sound cynical or mean, but people are really dumb. I feel like people are so dumb, and I feel like for so long I took it really personally.
Okay.
And I would get really angry, like the wheelchair guy, like push the wheelchair up the stairs. I would be like so mad that someone could be so dumb, and then like, you know, if I give that person grace, he was doing the best with what he had.
What he knew.
Yeah, what he knew. But I feel like I grew up taking things really, like everyone was an alcoholic. I mean, besides myself and my sister.
Right.
But I grew up taking things really personally and walking on eggshells and feeling like I could never do anything right, you know? And so I take things really personally, and have had to learn that no, people are doing the best with what they have and what they know. And sometimes people are just really stupid.
Yeah.
You just have to like.
Sometimes they're idiots,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah. And it's not about you. It's about them, you know?
Yeah.
I'm learning that. I will learn that for the rest of my life.
I love that. So you're giving grace around stupidity.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. What's your hope for like the next, let's do a short one. Let's do like next year. What would you like in the next 12 months?
In the next 12 months, I would like to find a secure job that I don't feel like is draining my soul. But I just, I'm about to finish my book, and I would really love to find an editor for that and a publisher. And it's the one thing that I feel like, okay, I want to put this out into the world. I want a secure job. I mean,
did I say at the top of this that you wrote for Dave? I don't think I did. I skipped it. She wrote for Dave. Hilarious show on FX. Great.
Yes. I'm pitching a show about climate change right now. Like it's a comedy about climate change, but I never want to say the words climate change. Like I want to show run my own show. Like that's what I want.
And you were also, what was the Aaron Sorkin thing? The Masterminds?
Masterclass.
Yeah,
Masterclass.
With Aaron Sorkin. And I watched it, and I was like, man, that girl looks so familiar. And I was like, and you're like, yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
That was in it.
Yeah.
How'd you get picked for that? What was that?
Actually, I wrote a script about taking care of Edna. It's called E is for Edie.
Yeah.
And that's the script that I sold in 2018. So before the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah. And I hope to one day be able to make that.
That has to be made.
Yeah.
That has to be made.
Because so many people are in this position. I mean, I'm part of like several caregiving groups, and, you know, attend when I need to and stuff. But it's like so many people are going through this, and not just with siblings, parents, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of people, like we're getting the list of future guests, and then we've had like 2 past guests, and the caregiving aspect of it is like, it's one thing. Like, I think if you're a parent, you're like, okay, I signed up for this. Hopefully I only signed up for the heavy duty stuff for 18 years, and then they're out as long as they're healthy. And so like you can prep your brain for that as much as you can. Even that's hard.
Right.
But when it's put on you or a
Mhm.
sudden or something that like just happens out of the blue
Mhm.
and then let alone long term, that's a
Mhm.
completely different ballgame, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, you have permanent back damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's yoga has been really helpful. I mean, that's also has been a medicine for me. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I should have been carrying a 160-pound person up a flight of stairs or lifting her from the car. And even the caregivers who work with her now are like, "No, Jeanie, you don't have to lift that way." Like, no one ever. I didn't know how to properly lift her.
Nobody told you.
No one told me, and my grandma didn't know. Like, she was doing the best with what she had, and
Right.
so her daughter died of, and then she was suddenly raising us. Like, she was going through a lot too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I want security and I want to feel safe, and I want money.
I want, dude.
That's what I want.
I know both of us have talked about like, do we just move back home? Because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I just know. And I put it off for so long. I never thought I would want to move back to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And then you get put into it like a situation. It's kind of like the frog in the pot thing, which is, if you don't know, a frog in boiling water, you slowly turn it up and they don't even know that they're being boiled alive until they're dead, because you can just keep turning it up.
Mhm.
And I feel like LA is that boiling water where I'm like, do I jump out now?
Mhm.
Do I get out now or
Mhm.
not? And I
Mhm.
don't know what the answer to that is.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think when you get to rock bottom or scarcity, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I just want stability and I don't care what shape it comes in, really.
Yeah, and to breathe and to have space, and like what
Yeah.
we pay for our apartments, you can have, so much
A
more.
5-bedroom house somewhere.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. We'll figure. I'm excited to see where you're going to be in a year. And I'm
Thank
wishing
you.
for all those things for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to do a double date.
Yes, let's do it.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys. That's last episode. So we will see you guys next time. Talk to you soon.